Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a live presentation of SumerDaily. We had an excellent Thursday night football, Shawn, between division rivals, the 49ers, and the Rams. I'm not really excited about what I saw, Shawn. And the reason why is something we've discussed many times. But before we jump into that, how you feeling today, brother?
Sam, I'm feeling good. We usually do the haters and appreciators. I think, it may be a little bit, I don't want to reveal text messages that were sent. Those are off wax. But halfway through the game, you're thinking, what are we going to talk about? Sam, I think there was so much. There was good, there was bad, there was a little ugly, there was a little bit of beautiful. And as it's in the eye of the beholder. I do think there was a lot of good in this game that we can talk about. But Sam, got to hear your thoughts on the weather. Are you finally jumping on the let's play all these games in domes?
If there is a Shanahan McVay matchup, we have to put it in a dome. We have to figure it out. It has to be in LA, or perhaps we can meet in Sacramento or some median location for a 49ers Rams matchup. But it really just took the air out of the game. The weather did, and it was a driving rain. You could barely see the players. It was raining so hard, and we saw all kind of slips, drops, bad throws, all kinds of stuff. The pass game was really inhibited. I don't think either of the coaches could really open up their playbook. And there's some good stuff we got out of that. Particularly, I like some of the run concepts I saw from the Rams. But, man, the Rams, 49ers, want to see some offense. And we really saw a lot of regression, probably due to the short week and probably also due to the rain. Would you agree, Shawn?
It's funny to look at how both of these teams played last week. Of course, the 49ers think they hang like 38 on the Bears. The Rams, of course, just have that insane game against the Bills where Stafford is going blow for blow with Josh Allen all the way through the entire game. And to come into this week, of course, yeah, it is a short week. That is a big thing. Obviously, it's division rivals. You have teams that just have a lot of familiarity with each other. Like there is a factor there. I do think, though, it at least to me, it felt like it wasn't that, like we can't open up the playbook at all. Early in the game, I thought the Rams did a good job. You get into some of those 5-down looks on those 3rd-down situations. You play tight to coverage and you see how it goes, right? Like there are going to be times where you're able to hit a good streak of 3 or even 4 in a row where you're forcing 3 and outs, or you're just forcing punts on 4th down there after a 3rd down deflection, or just a drop pass. So right. I do think for a defensive unit overall, where it is led by the defensive line, it probably will continue to be led by that defensive front for the foreseeable future. If you're maybe, a little bit uneasy on the back end, I like the idea of leaning into the variance a little bit, get into that man coverage as opposed to kind of dropping back in zones or however you want to match it in different ways. So I do think there was a lot of the short week happening, but you see some of those early down runs get burned. I felt like for the 49ers, you weren't able to kind of win on the front side. You were obviously missing Trent Williams to cut off the backside. You weren't able to kind of cut up and really create kind of positives in that way. And then it just felt like the Rams defensive line just kept on winning. And I mean, Sam, I don't know what Matt Stafford, what magic he had in this game. A lot of dropped interception for the 49ers. Well, I will say, like Hufanga having the cast, we're going to forgive that one. You get credit, a lot of credit, I think, for coming out. That's a hard catch to make. I think Stafford leads the league now in dropped interceptions, which I don't know. I mean, sometimes it is just better to be lucky. But Stafford, who had such just a phenomenal game last week, to come in and really, really struggle through 3 quarters. I think it was a little bit frustrating at times to watch, for sure.
Yeah, I think the reason why I was so frustrated with the weather is I had circled this game as something that would tell us things particularly about the quarterback position. All year, this offense has kind of lived and died with the turnover propensity or turnover-free play of Matthew Stafford. Even back to weeks 4, 5, 6, I was highlighting that as the true reason that they win, specifically because they've been so good on early downs and not great on late downs. And so it really puts you in a position where if there are long 3rd downs, he's going to have to make plays. And if he throws picks, that's obviously not going to be very successful. And I wanted this to be a game, particular given Hufanga and Greenlaw were both back, to tell us a little bit if Matt Stafford could start stringing some good games together. They have won a lot of games down the stretch. They had a rough start, very similar to last year, but it felt like last year Stafford had his stuff together a little bit more. And it seems like Puka, not a lot of production from Kupp, but it seems like Puka is playing as he should, as one of the best wide receivers in this league. Is there anything, Shawn, that you saw when you were watching to take away to show that this was a probability of the rain, Or is this going to be the way Stafford's going to play? True up and down player for the rest of the year.
I think he is a player at this point in his career where he still has that high end potential. Like we saw it last week, Sam. We can't pretend like that didn't happen. We've seen it at different times this year. We also talked about the Rams. Maybe it's actually we're the problem here, where we talked about the Rams after that Dolphins game where it just looked like they had nothing. I do think it's going to be a little bit game plan specific. It's going to be a little bit game flow specific overall, just kind of where Stafford is at. But again, he still has that high end potential. So I think because you have that, because you can just kind of not magically, but you get such high end performance from Puka Nacua as well, and just an offense that I think is well designed in so many ways. I'm not sure if it's just riding the roller coaster for the Rams. I think through the end of the season, where look, they still have a shot at winning the NFC West. That Week 18 game against the Seahawks, I think is just going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to mean a lot. I'm hoping that it is a game that is truly for the division and has actual impact on the division race, as opposed to just like one team can lose and then both teams make it. So I think overall for the Rams, you're still kind of riding that streak with Stafford a little bit. And I think you can still feel positive, right? Like, I mean, ugly wins are still wins. It's a Thursday night. You're playing a division rival. You're on the road. It's raining. It's I think just a tough space overall, but you do want to be able to kind of steady that out where the dropped interception, I want to mention that again, just because that is something that it's not always going to fall in your favor. I feel like it has fallen in his favor a decent amount this year, but whether it's a little bit of miscommunication, a little bit of, hey, just like missing a guy in coverage or something like that, you like when you play the Seahawks again, like you're not going to be able to have that, I think, for a defense that in Seattle has been taking advantage of quarterbacks in so many different ways.
Definitely. And so before we get into some of the more deep dive or analytical stuff, let's keep it at the quarterback level. I wanted this to be a game, particularly against a pretty nasty Los Angeles Rams front, that told us if Purdy was that guy. Again, rain notwithstanding. That's why it's such a drag that it was raining. Brock Purdy, 14 for 31, 3 sacks and a pick, a pretty crucial pick as well. If we're going to start seeing this middle class of NFL quarterback be built up, we had Geno Smith was kind of the first one in that $25 to $35 million range. Then we had Baker Mayfield. It seems like we're going to add Sam Darnold, maybe $35 to $42 million there. If that class of players is going to start building up in upcoming years, can you justify, given what we've now seen for a couple of games going into this extension year, giving him the $60 million, $63 million at this point? Let's just break down first what you saw from Purdy in this game.
I do think early on there were some situations where Purdy had decent ball. Like the ball came out when it needed to. It was on a receiver. It ends up as a drop. We see the one later in the game where Deebo Samuel is kind of cutting from Purdy's right to his left, ends up in a drop. So there were situations where that happened. I do think that I don't think he completed like any deep passes when I really think about it, because the Rams, obviously, you figure out just ways to kind of stress the offense overall. But I think the plan really wasn't to push the ball down the field in that way, where it does feel like you have to get to that in certain ways. But if you're just not able to complete those, or it feels like this is going to be a kind of contested ball to George Kittle, we're really hoping for kind of a big catch there. And when teams are comfortable playing the 49ers in man coverage, which I think they just should do that, right? You should feel confident as a defense in man coverage in a lot of those situations. You're forcing tight window throws where, like I said, as a Rams defense, you want to lean into that variance where when the ball's thrown in a tight window, it's just not always coming down as the 49ers catch right now. And they're not able to generate the same yards after catch as last year, partially because of that man coverage. So, and then, obviously you're missing Brandon Ayuk, you're missing Christian McCaffrey. So as a unit, I think sometimes, I know you could say maybe it's a little bit hard to evaluate Purdy where you're taking away some of the parts. I think a detractor could say, oh, well, you're getting all the information that you need. But I guess, Sam, I'm curious what you think here. If you're negotiating on the side for Brock Purdy, you're asking for the world. You're asking for the keys to the kingdom. You're asking for your name on the stadium, right? You're asking for everything. Obviously, a lot of that is off of those numbers from last year, from that performance. And then you can point to things this year where it's like, hey, like I didn't have all of my guys here this year. So, how am I going to be penalized for the things that happened?
The first topic I think that is going to come up is Brandon Ayuk was missing. How can you expect him to be great without an all-pro wide receiver, even though he didn't look like it early on in the season? That's, again, another caveat to the question here, which then leads into when you have a 30 to 35, like a reasonable 30 to $35 million gap in a deal space, there's definitely some conversations and some discussions that need to be happening, because it's very rare for that to happen. I think The only similar deal space this year will be Sam Darnold, and I think that one will be between 42. That'll be a $10 million deal space between $42 million and the golf contract at 53. And I think you meet in the middle there. And if you believe in Sam Darnold and I'm the Vikings, $45 million is not a terrible place to end up there, particularly given how well he's played and how well he's hooked up with Justin Jefferson and now TJ Hawkinson being added in. And if that's not going to be the case with Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy is not going to have Christian McCaffrey as we knew him moving forward, I just don't know what this offense is going to look like with him in it. Like, I think it looks like a lot more 500 seasons if Trent Williams is going to miss games and Christian McCaffrey is going to miss games. And I think Shanahan can only spin up so much magic. And it's tough. It's really tough. And when you look at the metrics, he's a darling. Like he's done very well this year in a lot of the metrics. And this is really one of the few cases where Shawn, I got to trust my eyes a little bit. I don't like how it looks. I don't think it looks good. And I don't know if when Ayuk comes back, it's going to make all the difference, even though that seems like the case right now. So we've been a little negative on the show. We're going to add one more, a little bit of hate before we get into our loves, but our loves are good. We guarantee you we're positive guys on the show. But Shawn, talk me through some of the game management decisions in this game, which, to be fair, we've seen in the past that Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan seem to trust their gut and their intuition a little bit more than, our us numbers geeks like to lean into. Just walk me through some of the decisions, especially given the game was what? It was 12-6?
Look, I think that following your intuition is fine. I guess for me personally, when it's aggressive, right? Like Dan Campbell follows his intuition. He is not necessarily by the books every single time. There are going to be multiple times a season where he, by the numbers, should kick a field goal, and he's like, no, we're just going to go for it. So I do kind of wish that some of these guys had that bend a little bit further in that direction, because like literally you're giving up just points of win probability. So you could also say, hey, it's a tight game. Like you don't want to give up field position and all that. I prefer as a team overall, even when the offense isn't moving, like you want to end it on your own terms, right? You want to be able to kind of push the ball in that sort of way. It could certainly be, hey, we're not confident in our quarterback. We're not confident in our receivers. We're not confident in the plays that we can call right now because of the rain. So I think that causes a lot of frustration. But as you mentioned, it is a year-over-year thing for McVay and for Shanahan, where you are in unbelievable play designer. You're a great play caller. You're able to create this beautiful system. And I think sometimes you look at it and think, well, there still is meat on the bone there. Like you still have that fourth down to be able to deal with in different ways. I'm not saying, hey, you need to go for it on every single fourth down. I do think some of the situations where, hey, you're around midfield, you're now in kind of plus territory. It feels like your defense is playing well. You don't just have to keep on kind of punting it. So where we can think of tons of examples, it feels like, hey, like McVay's last drive, I think was really, really good. Not that they were just like obviously at the end, they end up taking that field goal to go up 6 instead of going for, which, hey, I think you can argue more for that in this situation than kind of over the last few weeks that we've seen it. But I think overall, just from that one specific thing, and Sam, obviously game management is so much more than just the fourth down decisions. Right. But I would love for these guys to be able to just like spend like 6 weeks in a room and it's like, hey, all we're going to do this week is just fourth down plays, or this like month and a half. Like we're just going to come up with nasty fourth down designs and we're just going to kill the entire league with it. Cause I know they can. Like I really do believe in their ability to design some of those plays. I think you just want to see that, particularly in like the high leverage moments, just, push maybe a little bit towards aggression. And that's my bias. I think that there's going to be situations where you go for it on fourth down, you miss it, and then the other team scores, and now it's like, oh man, what was a close game? It gets blown open. I guess my personal bias is just more towards making that aggressive decision. Because Sam, notably, it's not my job on the line. Go for all of them. Go for 4th and 15 for all I care.
Certainly. And the reason why I was so upset, particularly with the Rams not going for a lot of these 4th and shorts, is because they had a play that seemed to be unstoppable in this game, and that was the insert runs. They were doing a fantastic job, and it was beautiful to watch, particularly as an old linebacker who had to, take on some of those weird insert blocks that you don't expect are going to come, and then all of a sudden you have Kyron Williams picking gaps in front of you, and you have Puka Nacua who's on you, and you don't even expect him to be. The insert runs could have been used on fourth down a lot of the times. Tell us about the insert runs, Shawn Syed.
I really like the way that McVay designs those runs, and they have like multiple different ways to do it, where it's like, look, your job at the end of the day is to block the support defender. It's usually that safety kind of rolling down in some way or another. They'll have ways where, not that it's like a read it motion, but it's like you have kind of a list of a few different motions that you can use to kind of get there. So I do really like that, where there's a little bit of freedom built in. You're obviously kind of finding your best angle, but early on you see the play where it's like, hey, we're going to send a guy in motion, kind of like jet motion, or it looks like jet motion across. We're going to send another guy, but now this guy's an inserter instead of like just kind of the jet blocker coming across. You see it where it's, we're going to send one guy across. Now it looks like we're sending a second guy, but he's going to wham block kind of going in the other direction. And I think you see it over and over. And look, they can do that because they have Puka Nacua, who is awesome. Like, he is so much fun to watch. And I think you think of offenses sometimes thinking, hey, we're going to play, in 2 tight end sets and make it feel like it's just 11 personnel, where they're kind of the opposite, where they can play 11 and it makes 12 because Puka can really play like a tight end. So I think that against a defense where you're going to play nickel all the time, when you're the 49ers, you can get super creative with that, because you know that, look, the safety's going to roll down. Like, he's going to have to be in the box when you get into those condensed, some of those heavier sets. So finding creative ways to get that is awesome. And McVay is so good at it. He is really, really good at it. I think it's something that's fun to watch because, like, really, I think it stretches the imagination in different ways. And that it's like one of the things I love so much about football is you can have this player have the exact same assignment from all the way on the left side of the formation, from inside on the right side of the formation. You can have him run to the assignment. You can have him run away from the assignment. And then after this, now you get back to the assignment. And it's like, yeah, on a chalkboard, Puka Nacua is blocking the insert defender. But you find all the different ways to get to it. You can dress it up a little bit. You find ways to now marry your play action to it. And it's look, I'm sure people can say, oh, you're like sick and tired of hearing about Sean McVay being this kind of wonder kid. Like, he's just so good at it. Like, it is really, really fun, I think, to watch in so many ways.
Certainly. And then flipping to the side of the ball that I thought could have been exposed in this game, but what I didn't account for was that Dre Greenlaw was going to come back. And then obviously Hufanga, who came back last game, was going to be back to basics there. This defense I did not trust in because of the injuries at the beginning of the year. But when they have their full deck stacked, holy smokes, dude, they have a bunch of guys who can make plays. Fred Warner played excellently, I think, in this game. He had 15 tackles. One tackle was a level of play recognition that I have not seen in a very long time from a linebacker, in which Kyron Williams levels someone on pass blocking, and Stafford is able to, kind of maneuver. And it could have been really easy for Fred Warner to kind of add on that or, get caught up in the mix, particularly given a guy got absolutely smoked. Instead, Kyron Williams leaks out, and like Fred Warner is apt to do, just appears, basically teleports, and makes a great tackle that I think ultimately, if I'm not mistaken, led to a field goal. Plus, you have Greenlaw out there who has 8 tackles. He was playing great. And Hufanga, man, he's the game changer, like the certified eliminator for this defense, and he changes the whole face of it, in my view. Now that they kind of have all their guys back, what do you think about this 49ers defense, Shawn?
Sam, it makes me sad. It really, really, really does make me sad that we didn't get to see a full season of everyone. And look, every team gets injuries. Every team has to deal with it. I get that. Like, I would love if we could just play Madden, turn the injuries off. I want to see the best guys playing healthy all the time. Like you mentioned, Fred Warner. Gosh, like, you really can't say enough about him. There's a clip against the Buccaneers where the Buccaneers are running this play that everyone runs. It's like 3 receivers to one side, running back the other way. The 3 receivers are just going to kind of wash out the linebacker. Running back's going to kind of squeak out the other way. Warner's like, it literally looks like he's disappearing. Like, I don't understand how he's kind of fitting into space, how he's sort of getting through things. It was really, really fantastic. I really like that you mentioned that play against Kyron Williams there. And I was so happy to see Greenlaw back. I mean, I was like really heartbroken for him in the Super Bowl, like the way that he got hurt coming off the sideline. And obviously he doesn't play the whole entire game. And towards that back end there, just, I mean, hey, whatever. Like, you don't have the full juice back. It's not like you're 100% healthy right now. Hopefully he still has such a long career ahead of him. And as you mentioned, Hufanga coming in there, it is really fun to watch those guys fly around. And as like a scheme overall for the 49ers, where you can be 4 down, attacking, getting after people, having those 3, like, especially when Hufanga's rolling down, and like now it feels like, hey, we have 3 real linebackers there, the way that Hufanga plays. It's such a fun unit overall. So it's a bummer that we haven't been able to see them all healthy together for the entire year, where, I mean, at this point, it feels like the 49ers season is unfortunately kind of over. But I'm glad, I guess, we get at least, 1/2 of beautiful highlights. We're going to be able to hold on to that for as long as possible.
Certainly. And so, speaking about the 49ers season probably being over, the drive that ended it started at 4 or 5 minutes out. I was watching the game at a friend's house, and I jokingly said, "Oh, I should probably go home now to get ready for the stream because it's going to be the last drive of the game." And 3 minutes later, it ended up being pretty much the last drive of the game. I think they got it down to what, like 10, 15 seconds or something like that by the time they ended up kicking a field goal. It was just a beautiful drive, excellently executed. They had the plays that they needed to have, and they had the right calls in the places they needed them. Shawn, break us down through, the complex of the 4-minute drive, because you're in an interesting spot there where, you got to score. You want to improve your win probability by putting points on the board, but you also don't really want to give the ball back to the other team too quickly.
It's a tough balance where, of course, yeah, you want to be able to score. You want to be able to move the ball. You want to be able to just run down the clock. You want to be smart with, hey, make sure our guys get tackled in bounds. Make sure they're, moving forward, finding ways to just keep the clock moving. You can't get too conservative, though. And I guess, when the Rams got the ball back, we thought, both of us mentioned it, like, hey, is it going to be 3 runs and the 49ers are able to get another chance? But instead, they get to play action early, which it felt like that was the best call drive of the entire game for the Rams, which
Certainly.
I love to see that. Like, that is the highest leverage moment. That is your chance to ice this game away, to really just put the nail in the coffin for literally the 49ers entire season. So not that McVay was saving the best for last in any sort of way, but I was happy that he went to a bunch of play action. You get that jet sweep to Puka. You just get just a few different looks where, of course, the 49ers, like, they want to jump off the ball. Those linebackers are going to come downhill, but at the same time, you're able to use that against them in a little bit of play action. You're able to get more creative when your play actions, whether it's tight ends slamming down and kind of popping out in a few different ways. And then you see Greenlaw off the field, you're able to attack a little bit in the run game. So I think a really, really impressive way for the Rams to really seal the game. And yeah, of course, the 49ers got the ball back. Would I've liked for them going for it on 4th down? Maybe, I could see maybe avoiding that kick to go up 6 situation again, but just a really, really impressive way to finish the game. Sam, I know both of us would have liked to seen that the entire game, but I'm glad that McVay didn't just say, we're going to run duo 3 times. We're going to go punt the ball back. Like, we're confident in our defense, the way that your offense is playing. Instead, being pretty aggressive with some of those play action calls. And, like, you could kind of feel it, I think, through that drive where it's like, oh, they're in a rhythm. Like, Stafford is feeling confident. We're not getting the Stafford keepers anymore. Although you get that quarterback sneak where Stafford it was really, really successful on those. So I think a beautiful drive where I hope that that's like the taste that everyone is left with. Like, that was a really, really good drive to finish a game that, had ups and downs in other points.
Certainly. And speaking of leaving good taste in folks' mouth, let's preview a little bit what do you think the best moments of this football weekend is going to be? We got a lot of high leverage games here. We got, a Buffalo at Detroit. We got a Green Bay and Seattle. There's a bunch of pretty interesting games this week. What do you think is going to be the most interesting that folks should watch?
Sam, how are you going to ask me this question? Like, it's too hard to avoid Bills Lions. That's the easy answer. It's way too easy. It's too hard to avoid that. I think that can legitimately be a Super Bowl preview. Like, we say, Eagles Ravens Super Bowl preview. Now, like, this is could be real Super Bowl preview. This one, like, for me, I felt at times, hey, the Bills can be the best team in football. Like, they really, really can be. At the same time, from a defensive perspective, the way they match up with the Lions, similarly, the way that they match up with a team like the Ravens, when offenses really want to get heavy on you, I think you find out a little bit more about just the light boxes or just like the light defense overall that you're going to play. So I want to see what Buffalo has in store there. But, the battle for Pennsylvania, Sam, we got Pittsburgh playing Philadelphia there, where all in the news this entire week, everything about the Eagles passing offense, all like what's going on. It's Jalen Hurts. Is it AJ Brown? Is it Kellen Moore? Is it Nick Sirianni? Is it the passing game coordinator? Really, everyone kind of looking in so many different directions. That feels like a game where they can get back on track. Not that they have to force it, because obviously they're going to be run first. They're going to figure out ways to just have success in the run game. Steelers front is totally legit, though. So I want to see what Philadelphia is able to do that. But I think there's so many good games. We got Colts Broncos. I think that's going to be a fun one. What's Anthony Richardson going to do against the Broncos defense? Tampa Bay, Los Angeles. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit more in on Tampa Bay than some other people, particularly just the way that Liam Cohen has that run game drawn up. We haven't even mentioned Sunday night Packers Seahawks. But Sam, if I can complain for a minute, I have the like what I feel like is the best job in the world and love doing it. All of these games kind of scrunched up at 325. It makes doing the Monday morning mashup just like a touch harder. I would love for all of the big games to be at 1:00 when I can just, you review it through the rest of the day. But no, Sam, the test is on here for me in week 15.
Hey, we gotta make some money out here. You gotta let the NFL make some money, because the better the NFL does, the better and more games we get to look at. You mentioned a Super Bowl preview, Bills Lions. There's some people out there that want to see a Pittsburgh Philly Super Bowl, and I just
Yeah,
don't
they all
know.
live in Pennsylvania, I suppose.
Yeah, they all live in Pennsylvania, and I know I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson believer. I was asked about it a couple times on the radio this week. I don't necessarily know if I trust this offense, but I guarantee if they can move the ball through the air against the Quinyon Mitchells, the Cooper DeJean, that up and coming Eagles pass defense, I'll certainly believe in them a little bit more. The one I kind of got circled is at 1 p.m. and it's Miami versus Houston. Miami's kind of starting to get their offense back in line. Perhaps could make some noise and get back in the playoff picture. Houston kind of on the other side of that. Their defense has been fantastic. Their offense has been really questionable all year. They've been on kind of a backslide the last couple games or last stretch of this season. Shawn, what do you think about this Miami-Houston matchup?
I think it is going to be a lot of fun. I think that Tua has a chance to just throw 3 touchdowns and continue what we have seen from them on offense, where you're finding different ways to. I feel like I keep mentioning Jonnu Smith, just like finding different ways outside of just Hill and Waddle, where you're able to get obviously Achane involved in different ways. It does feel like Tua has been playing just moving in the right direction overall. And I think Houston as a team is not at a crossroads necessarily. I do think you probably, if you're a Houston Texan, you feel a little bit disappointed with how I think some things have gone this season, but you're coming back. Like, this is your chance. Like, you can really, I think, continue to just like salt away the lead in the division, be a confident AFC South winner. You're going to host a playoff game. I think you go into this game, you're hosting it against the Dolphins, where you should be able to put up points. You should be able to get the run game going back in a few different ways, where I want to see what Houston's plan overall is for Chop Robinson, where Chop just feels like he is really, really generating a lot of pressure. I'm hoping that Stroud is able to avoid that, because I feel like at different times during the season, we've been not really, or for me personally, not like frustrated at Stroud necessarily, though he hasn't played his best the whole entire way through. But asking so much of him, where he's constantly moving around, he's constantly pushed out of the pocket, just hopefully that you don't have to have that in this game. So for me personally, I kind of feel like I'm rooting for both of the teams. Like, I would really love to see great performances from everyone. I'm putting on like my NFL logo cap on and hoping for good plays with that one.
Yeah, speaking of the NFL logo cap on, you're a scheme guy, and we got 2 triple option teams on Saturday, Army Navy. So perhaps we can get a little Shawn Syed Sunday night breakdown of the triple option. Maybe not, though, because there's so much good NFL that he'll have to be breaking down all game. Shawn, thank you so much for joining me on this Thursday Night Football breakdown. Signing off, he's Shawn Syed. I'm Sam Brookhouse. Thank you for listening.